Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Sanjin Ibrahimovic. I am the Developer Experience Engineer at the MuckRock Foundation. I work on um, developing and building out our APIs, building new add-ons, which are extended functionality built on top of our APIs, specifically the DocumentCloud API. I help improve documentation, and I work on all of our kind of platforms, whether it be DocumentCloud, MuckRock, and so forth, in a technical capacity. Today we'll be talking about kind of getting started with building with MuckRock, our tools, mainly our programmatic interfaces, or APIs, as well as something called add-ons, which is open source and available to everyone. Again, for folks who are just hopping on, I dropped the slides in the Q&A doc. In the Q&A doc, just go ahead and enter in under roll call your name and maybe what org you're a part of, and any questions add to the questions doc at the end. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the screen share. Yes, I can drop the links one more time. Yep. All right, so I'm going to get started with the screen share. Can folks see my screen? Michael, you'll probably have to tell me.
Yep, that's coming through.
All right, great. So yeah, let's get started. First, what is MuckRock? The MuckRock Foundation is kind of a multifaceted organization. We have an editorial team that does original reporting. We have MuckRock Requests, which is our platform for filing public records requests all across the nation. We have DocumentCloud, which is another form of tooling that we have, which is like a hub for primary source documents for journalists and researchers. And we also encourage the use of FOIA, and we advocate for transparency in the public sector. So again, MuckRock is the platform, MuckRock Requests is the platform we use to actually file public records requests. If you've never used MuckRock before, if you're coming primarily from DocumentCloud, I encourage you to check out the site and see what other kind of requests folks have filed across the country. MuckRock Request does have an API, so anything that you can kind of see on the front end of the site related to requests is available programmatically as well. That includes the ability to search for requests filed on MuckRock, file public records requests that assumes that you have credits and an account, of course, retrieve communications on an individual request, or even files, responsive documents that an agency has provided on a request. And it also allows you to query our jurisdiction and agency databases to figure out where you might want to file a request. Brief overview of the DocumentCloud API. That allows you to interact with our hub for primary source documents. So it allows you to search within a specific document or across a larger set of documents, including and up to the entire corpus of public documents on DocumentCloud, something like over 6 million documents. It allows you to search by title, description, the full text of each document, etc. The API also allows you to upload documents from a file or URL. This requires that you have to go through a verification process, basically, to be allowed to upload onto DocumentCloud publicly. You kind of have to go through a verification stating that you're authorized journalist or verified journalist or a research or advocacy organization that has a acceptable use for DocumentCloud. The API also allows you to create, modify, and delete projects, which are kind of collections of documents. Notes, which are individual annotations that appear on a document, whether by you or another user, and document data, which is how we organize documents on DocumentCloud, separate from projects. It's like another way that we can organize documents using key and value pairs. Additionally, you can also apply optical character recognition. This basically tells the computer how to read hard to parse documents, maybe something that includes handwritten text, to improve the quality of searches. And then you can also build and call pre-existing add-ons, which allow you to further process documents or do some kind of repeatable action. Yeah. So before we get started with drafting our first API call, I think it's important that we have a discussion about authentication. So not all the API endpoints or all the actions that I mentioned in the past two slides actually require authentication. Like you can search for requests, public requests, without even authenticating, but some endpoints and combinations do require authentication. So I wanted to discuss this too. So before we make our first API call, we should learn how to authenticate with the MuckRock account service. If you don't have a MuckRock account, you'll have to sign up for one first, and then you can go through to get a token for API access. So once you've created your MuckRock account credentials, you reach the API token endpoint. You can type your credentials into that site directly, or you can send a request to that endpoint. The response will look something like this. So you receive two tokens, one being an access token and one being a refresh token. The access token is valid for 5 minutes and allows you to access resources on any tool that is hooked up to MuckRock account services, whether that be DocumentCloud or MuckRock, but it is time capped. This is for security and also prevents abuse of the services like mass scraping and things like that. But you can use the refresh token to get renewed access and refresh tokens to continue to make requests. Again, the access token is valid for 5 minutes. It allows you to make requests during that duration, in which case, after that, you'd have to use your refresh token to get a new token. You'll want to send your access token with, again, you don't have to do with every API request. Some requests don't require authentication, but generally you want to send it because if you are sending too many API calls over a 24-hour period, you might start receiving errors. You're going to be rate limited, essentially. And some endpoints you're not going to be able to access at all. Like you're not going to be able to upload a document without providing your access token. And it's passed in an authorization header, like in this format here. Again, when the access token expires, you'll start receiving errors. The refresh token is longer lived and it allows you to refresh both. To refresh your access token, you can take the access token from the previous slide, or sorry, the refresh token from the previous slide and paste it into this other endpoint, which is the refresh endpoint, to receive an updated access and refresh token. This will allow you can include those updated credentials in your further API requests. So this is if you're writing something on your own and you're not using a pre-built library that handles authentication for you. You're using PHP and you're writing API calls, you'll have to implement something that retrieves and updates your access and refresh tokens for you. If you are a Python developer, there is an easier way to go about authenticating rather than building your own kind of subset to kind of gain access to those access and refresh tokens. There is Python Squarelet, which is a library that it automatically, each time that you make a request, it automatically gets those access and refresh tokens. And if you start receiving errors, it's going to automatically retrieve those for you. Additionally, if you use any of the Python wrappers for our two APIs, they come integrated with Python Squarelet automatically. So if you're making a request with the MuckRock API using the Python MuckRock Python library, you don't have to worry about authentication. You authenticate once with your credentials, and then each request after that, that token handling is taken care of for you. So moving on from authentication, let's actually craft our first API call, which won't even require authentication in this case. So where do I send my API call? For MuckRock requests, we do have an API version 1 and an API version 2. In this session, I'll only be covering the API version 2 as we're moving away from the first version. So this is the endpoint for version 2. And for DocumentCloud, this is the endpoint that you'll, this is the base URL that you'll want to send requests to. And for documentation, MuckRock request has this documentation. It uses a library called DRF Spectacular to kind of auto-generate documentation for you. And then DocumentCloud has two. So the first one, similar to MuckRock requests, also uses DRF. We also have a help page that is updated as well. So you have two sources for documentation for the DocumentCloud API. So our goal for our first API call is we're going to craft a request that looks for public records requests on MuckRock that contain the word recipe. Now, that's in the request language. We're not talking specifically about maybe responsive documents. That would be a more challenging request. But so there were a lot of people signed up for this. I didn't want to make any assumptions about what programming language I was going to enforce on folks. So I wanted to make this as generic or agnostic, programming language agnostic as possible to get a broader audience. So for this first half of the training, I'll be using curl, which if you've never used curl before, it's a command line tool to transfer data to and from servers using URLs. To make it even easier for the unauthenticated requests, and I'll specify which ones are authenticated and unauthenticated, you can follow along by actually pasting the curl commands into this URL, which allows you to run curl commands on a server without having curl installed on your local machine. This endpoint method combination for this request, where we're looking up for MuckRock requests that have the word recipe, doesn't require authentication. So I won't be passing our access token. This is the curl command. So you can see we're searching for a resource. So I'm going to be using a get command. And then I pass in the URL, the base URL, which is the version 2. And then I add a parameter for the actual endpoint, which is requests. And I add an optional filter, which if we take a look at the documentation on MuckRock requests, let me actually. So requests, you can see request.list. This is, I want to see specific requests. I can pass in a search term, and it's expecting a string. So in this curl command, I'm going to be passing this as a filter here. So yeah, I pass the search parameter and I pass my search for a recipe. Down here, this parameter just tells us kind of, it tells curl what are we kind of expecting, and the responsive data is going to be in JSON format. That's almost always going to be the case. So what did you get when you ran that command on recbin, or if you have curl command locally? Well, you receive something that kind of looks like this. This is the web browser version. So this is just getting to that endpoint via the web browser. But you'll see a response that includes a couple different, it's a nested JSON with a couple different fields. So let's break down a successful API response. So the one that we just made, you'll see that there's 5, which actually is the number of requests that are returned to us. It tells us next, previous, and then the results object, which is just the actual requests are layered in there. So the response object has a few parts, namely count, which tells us how many results we have in total from our API call. This isn't generally returned on DocumentCloud, so don't expect it, but it is returned on MuckRock. Results, which lists the actual responsive data that we're looking for. and it's only from the current page of results. Now, I'm going to get into pagination a little bit more, but just know it's just for the current page. Next provides us a link to the actual next page of responsive data. And then previous provides us with a link to the previous page of results. So most responses on both of our APIs are paginated, meaning you're going to get like something like 25 results, and then you get a link to the next page of results. So let's say if you're doing a big query and you get like 1,000 requests in response, if you wanted to collect all of them, you would have to build something that clicks on, like essentially retrieves the JSON from each next link and keeps going until the next link is null. So if we look back at our previous call, you can see since we only had 5 results, there is no next or previous in the response. There's no link because we're only returning 5. So there's a few caveats. If we have a lot of results, again, you'd want to kind of loop through there until your next link is null. And then if we're building something that uses one of the APIs to query data live and allow users to like look through a wider set of resources, and I'll show you what that kind of looks like in some of our case studies later, we'll have to use next and previous and probably some form of caching on our own side to populate those results. So let's do something more interesting. That API call is really basic. Let's try to interact with both APIs. So let's write something that takes a MuckRock request, gets files from that request, and uploads them to a DocumentCloud account under a newly created project. So I should mention, again, to upload to DocumentCloud, you do need to be verified. So you have to create an account and then either join a verified organization or go through the verification process manually. So you need to have that prerequisite if you actually want to do the API calls later on in this presentation. But for the first couple calls, they're unauthenticated. You don't need to have an account to be able to run those. So the request I'm going to run on is this one. So a little bit of background. This is actually my first public records request back in 2018. It took quite a while for the FBI to respond. It was basically at a training that another organization gave back in 2018. And someone in the audience wanted to do a public records request for a file on an organization local to them and see if the FBI had anything on them because they were active in like the 50s and 60s. So I filed it and didn't expect to get a response. I actually got a response, my final response only maybe about 6 months ago. So as I became a MuckRock staffer, it's interesting to go from like MuckRock user to MuckRock staffer. But this is the request that we'll be doing this challenge on. So to make this a little easier on us, let's break down this problem into a couple concrete steps and then give it some scope. We need to look up a request, find the communications for a specific request. So on MuckRock, an agency replies, and that is a communication on a request. And those files, responsive documents that they provide, will be attached to those communications. And then we want to grab all of the files related to these communications. And then we want to create a project on DocumentCloud, so where we want to actually store these documents for later preservation and analysis. And then we want to upload these files from that MuckRock request to DocumentCloud. So the first challenge is look up a request. Let's ignore, for the sake of this presentation, that there is not the ID already in the URL. If you're savvy, you would notice that, but URL is already in there, but let's ignore that for a moment. So I want to search for this request. I want to interact with the MuckRock API, and I want to interact with the requests endpoint, and I want to search for that particular request. So I can pass in the title. I do need to kind of encode my spaces here so that it doesn't break. But if I did search for just Chicago, you would be able to find it in the list as well. It would just take quite a while. So this is the curl command that you can run as well. And it will return the request object for you in RecBin, and it'll give you a couple details. The one that we're primarily interested in this example is the ID for the requests. That allows us to get access to other resources for that specific request. So in the responsive data, you'll see there's only one request that matches this particular title, and it has the ID of this ID, which matches in the URL as well. So next, we want to be able to get all the communications for a request. If we, again, go back, we can click on the documentation. I can just hover back over into there. We can see, if we go into the communications, there is the ability, so this is where we can actually list which communications exist out there. We can filter it based on the ID of the associated request. Bingo. I only want the actual communications that I'm interested in, which are on this particular request. So the parameter is FOIA. And if we also look here, there is another thing that might be helpful if we want to pare down. Let's say the user attached a PDF or something like that to a communication. We don't want to include that in our response. We only want the documents that the agency actually provided. We can actually also provide response equals true as a filter, and that will make it so that these are only communications that actually came from the agency. These are not communications that the user actually initiated. So do note, there is a bug on RecBin. I don't know where to file this bug, but in preparation for this, it will still return all of the communications for that request. I think it's like 20 something on RecBin, but if you ran this curl command locally, it will actually filter and only show you the communications that were actually sent by the agency and not the ones initiated by the user. So there's a bug on their end, but it doesn't really matter. You are still able to see the communications for that request. So now we want to retrieve a file from a communication. So if we go back to our documentation and we go onto files, and then we go to retrieve. So we want to we want to retrieve a single file, for example. We can go to files retrieve and we can pass it an ID. This is the ID of the file object. So if we, let me actually run this to exit. Let me actually run this roll command. Show you what I'm talking about. So you'll see the communications that are listed. In this case, it's 29 of them. And some of them in the response, you'll see files, and some of them you won't. So these first couple don't have any. And then there's one that has a file. A lot of them that don't. This is probably just me following up with the agency. Here's another one with a file in it. And in here, in this list, so some of them have multiples. So if we scroll down, yeah, this last one that has 3 files. So each of these is an ID to a file object. So if I pass in one of these in a curl, let me back to slideshow. If I pass that file ID here and run that curl command, it'll return to me the file, the JSON for that file object. And in that response, you'll notice a link. This will be important for us later, F file. So because we ran this, these last series of curl commands unauthenticated, this won't work for embargoed requests. These are requests that a premium user on MuckRock has hidden from public search. And the resulting files attached to that request will also be private. So do note that you won't be able to do this with private requests or private documents, essentially. You'll have to pass in the authentication header, which I'll show you in a second. So we're retrieving a single file. Now let's create a project on DocumentCloud. So for this endpoint, we're creating a resource. So instead of using get, we're going to be using a post. And because this is a resource that requires an actual account, you have to have a DocumentCloud account to actually create a project on DocumentCloud. You do need to pass in your access token. So you can copy this curl code, but you have to also substitute your access token here if you actually want to create that project on your DocumentCloud account. This, of course, will be acting on the project's endpoint, and we're doing a post, so we're trying to create. Now, if we consult the documentation, so here, this open, we go to the DocumentCloud documentation, and we go down to projects. Great. So there's the title. So I'm going to pass in, so there's an error I just mentioned. Title is actually required to create the project. So I need to update the documentation after the mark that is required. If you don't pass in the title and you call to create project, the response will let you know that title is required. So I need to update that documentation. So we go back. We're creating a project on DocumentCloud. A successful call will give you a response that kind of looks like this. It'll include an ID. It'll include a lot of other details, including the title of your project, a description if you provided one, if the project is private or not, several other parameters, when it was created, so on and so forth. The important one for us for this example is the ID. We'll need this in order to upload that file we got from the request earlier into that project. So again, every file object has a URL under fFile, which links to the raw file as it is stored on MuckRock. We could download these locally, on our computer. You can open it up in the PDF viewer, download it, and then upload it to DocumentCloud manually. But in this case, we can upload the file directly to DocumentCloud using its URL because those files are public. They come from a public request. To upload, we use another post because we're creating a document on DocumentCloud. And then again, because this is a resource that you actually need a DocumentCloud account for, you do need to pass in your access token. So at this point, if you've generated an access token at the very beginning of the presentation, it is probably expired at this point. So you would have to refresh the token in order to get a new access token to actually run this curl command. Now, that's annoying. Manually managing your tokens is annoying, but luckily there are libraries and also methods which you can use to manage those tokens. But this is the creation of a document. So we're hitting the documents endpoint. We're doing a post. We're passing in something called a file URL. This is if we're uploading using the upload by URL mechanism and not passing in an actual PDF, like a raw PDF file. So we pass in that URL. We give the document a title. You can substitute it here. And then we give it the project ID that we got in response from our last call when we created a project. So again, all together, using both APIs, we first looked up a request using get on the requests endpoint and passing in the title of the request. We retrieved communications for a single request and filtered it to be only the responses, so something coming from an agency. We retrieved a single file from a request. we created a project and then uploaded that single document to DocumentCloud. So obviously this is very limited. We're doing this manually. We're copying and pasting, and it also requires us, like I mentioned, it requires us to manually stay on top of access tokens to make sure I can still send requests. If I'm slow, I have to refresh the token and so on. It obviously also doesn't scale well. Our initial challenge was to actually get all of the files from a request, right? We were only able to get one. So I'd have to loop in some way and substitute the file ID into a curl command, and I would have to use some kind of other language to be able to do that. So let's do this a lot quicker in a programming language, something like Python. So I've already done this. This is an API example script. These are the requirements. So you need to have Python installed on your machine, and I link to how to do that. Pip, and then you need a couple libraries. And then you need, basically, the way I structured the script is I don't want you plugging in your username and password into the script in case you want to like fork it and publish it somewhere. So you have to set up something called local environment variables on your machine that contain your username and password for your MuckRock account. And then you access those in the script, basically. So let's break down how this works. So this is the script. I have comments too, so it's helpful. But at the beginning, we do our imports. So we're dealing with the MuckRock API and the DocumentCloud API. So we want to include those subsequent Python wrappers. And then OS, all that allows us to do is to get those environment variables that I was talking about earlier. We create a client for the MuckRock wrapper. This allows us to interact with the MuckRock API. We ask the user for a request ID. We retrieve that request. We get all the communications for that request. And then all this does is basically gets all the file URLs and puts them into a nice little list for us that we can iterate on or use to upload documents. Now we create our DocumentCloud client. So this is to interact with the DocumentCloud API. We ask the user for a project name. We want to know what they want to name it. We create the project on DocumentCloud, and we upload all of those URLs that we got from those communications. We upload all of those documents to a project on DocumentCloud using this little method called upload URLs. It allows us to basically pass in a list of URLs to upload to DocumentCloud. So a lot shorter, doesn't require me to handle authentication. Really, I just authenticate once with my username and password, which is pulled from my local environment. If I wanted to, I could just condense this and remove comments, and it's like 25 lines of code, right? It's not complicated. I also don't even have to do iteration when I pass in the URLs. It does one call to upload all the URLs. Yeah, really simple. I can actually run this, so show you what that looks like when we run it. So the request ID, I think it's 48627. So it's going to do some. Ooh, maybe I didn't set my environment variables though, so this might fail. We'll see if that fails or not. No, it didn't because I was only interacting with the. No, that's not true. I was working with the MuckRock one, so I must have it still saved. Example. Here. Nope. Yeah. See, so I didn't pass in my environment, or I didn't store my environment variable, so the script failed. So let me do that real quick. I should have prepped the. Okay. Let me also make sure I got the right requested. Four eight six two seven. 48627. Okay, it worked. So if I go to my DocumentCloud account now, shortly there should be a new, yep, okay, new project which contains uh the documents from that request, and then they're processing. So this is going to take some time to upload. But if I refresh, maybe some of them will come in. They're indexing, so they'll come in and out for a second. But yeah, the script essentially grabs them from the request and uploads them to this newly created project named example. It's still going to load for a while, so we'll see when that finishes. So let's go back. So there's a couple of limitations from this script inherent. So first, the input from the user could be garbage. I'm just using a simple input field that accepts whatever from the user. For the project ID, I could give it a random string that makes no sense. I don't even guarantee that it is an integer. None of that. There's no user interface for the script. So if I wanted to share this with someone on my team or have someone who's not as technically savvy, there's no way that they can run this without using the command line, and most people never interact with the command line or hardly ever. There are a plethora of requirements. You have to have Python installed, you have to have pip installed, you have to have these libraries installed on your machine. You have to set up your local environment variables. You have to have all that set up and technical know-how to actually be able to use the tool. You have to run it locally on a machine or set up a server somewhere that's running the script, right? Error handling is limited. This kind of also has to do with the input. I can just provide it with whatever garbage and I get an error in response. And then finally, let's say this is a pending request and it's not yet completed, and there's a slow trickle of responsive documents coming in, and I want to be able to actually schedule this in a way. I want this script to handle that multiple instances. I want it to know like what documents I've already uploaded to DocumentCloud in the past. It has none of that implementation. So these are all inherent limitations in the design of this script, and it's just for demonstration purposes. So what's something better than a Python script that includes some API calls that I share with my team? Add-ons. So what are add-ons? Add-ons are essentially reusable scripts, but they use something called GitHub Actions, which think of them, GitHub Action runners, think of them as like temporary computers run on GitHub that run some code in a GitHub repository and can interact with APIs such as like the DocumentCloud or MuckRock API to perform some kind of automated task. Add-ons in particular move a little bit beyond just GitHub Actions and their workflows. They also include a front end on DocumentCloud. So let me show you what that kind of looks like. If you've never looked at a DocumentCloud add-on, let's look at like the Azure Document Intelligence add-on. So this is an add-on that allows me to apply optical character recognition to a document on DocumentCloud. And then I can also tag it to say that I've OCR'd this document already. So if I hit this, I can run this. And it executes an add-on run. The add-on run in the background actually goes off to GitHub. If I click on view source on any add-on on DocumentCloud, I can actually look at the source code for an add-on. So they're open source. You can look under the actions tab and I can actually see and monitor the add-on run as it's going. So it's going to do some preliminary tasks, install the dependencies that are required, all the stuff in the initial setup, and then it will actually run the add-on. So in this case, the add-on calls out to Azure's Document Intelligence API and runs OCR on the document and then writes that OCR text back to DocumentCloud for you. That's what it does in the main code. So as I mentioned, they have this, this portion of the front end is configurable. You can add more fields as necessary, booleans, you can offer strings, integers, and so on. And there is validation. So like if someone puts in a string into something that's supposed to be an integer field, it'll warn the user and so on. Add-ons are also schedulable, so they can run more than once, and it also includes ways to persist data between runs. So two of our most popular add-ons are the scraper add-on, which allows you to set up a scraper on a site. Works particularly well on static, like local government data portals or something like that. It pulls the PDFs from it and it keeps track of which ones it has seen, including different versions of the same PDF, and then stuffs them into a project for you. And then it keeps checking. You can schedule it to run once, hourly, daily, or weekly. So it can run on an interval, and you can run it more than once. That's kind of important for our MuckRock export tool that I've kind of been talking about already. And it also is able to actually capture what we've seen in the past. It has some kind of memory. So examples, Klaxon is another really popular add-on that we have. It allows you to monitor a web page for changes, and it gives you alerts when changes happen. That alert is sent to your primary email address on DocumentCloud or optionally a Slack webhook. The Azure add-on I already showed you. So why add-ons? Why not this custom one-time use script that I published? Well, the add-ons are open source, so you can modify them. You can fork an add-on and build your own version of an add-on. You can use them as you wish. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. So we already have something like 50 add-ons in our library, and a lot of code out there. So you don't have to, write some custom code to interact with the Azure API. There's probably code out there already that exists, and you don't have to spend precious development time reinventing the wheel. It offers a front end, so less technical users can still use the add-on. The only requirement to run an add-on is a DocumentCloud account. Unless you're doing something specific like uploading documents, then you have to be verified. Add-on runs offer logging. So again, if we go back here to log, you'll see some details about this particular add-on run. It contributes to this show your work philosophy that we really believe here in MuckRock, both using public records requests to get primary source materials, using open source tools to kind of show your work and how you actually got to the conclusions that you made. Additionally, there's no need to run any scripts on your personal computer, especially from people that you don't trust. I would always advise against that. And then even more powerfully, perhaps, is that you can chain add-ons together. So let's say I want to scrape some documents from a site. Then I want to run OCR on them to make them really searchable for me for my investigation. And then maybe I want to do something like check those documents for particular keywords or particular data patterns. I could use something like the regex extractor. So I can build a workflow that calls multiple of those add-ons in a row. That's kind of the heightened ability there. If we're only working with the DocumentCloud API, there's also no further need to authenticate because the add-ons class and the GitHub application that works with it is actually it handles that for us essentially. So what do we do? What would we do to actually convert the script that I talked about previously into an add-on? How do I do that, right? Like I have this niche script that I run locally to scrape a little site. I want to make it into an add-on so that other people can run it. How do I do that? So first, you can fork. We have a template add-on called the Hello World add-on. It includes some documentation on kind of different features of the add-on class and how to use them. And it also shows you kind of how to work with the front end. Uh, to build out those front-end components, mainly we want to ask the user for a project name and the request ID. We specify those in the config.yaml. That's where we specify the front-end fields. There are some requirements for our script. So we're using the Python MuckRock wrapper for the MuckRock API. Additionally, I ran into the fact that we have to also include the Squarelet library. So we have to add those to our requirements.txt in that repo. And then we basically mostly just copy paste functionality from our script into the add-ons main.py. And then maybe make a small few tweaks, right? Maybe we want to give the user some idea of what progress we've made on the add-on. Maybe we want to send the user an email after the add-on run has succeeded or failed. Things like that. Then to run the add-on on the actual DocumentCloud site, you install the DocumentCloud GitHub app. This allows you to see the add-on that you built actually into DocumentCloud. You want to give it permissions to only one repo at a time. It does give you the option to give it to all repos. Please don't do that. I don't want to see all your repos in our Django backend. It's not fun reaching out to folks. So please just give permissions to just one repo. And then you can edit the README to give developers an idea of what your add-on actually does. So there are some caveats. You're the only one who can see your add-on on DocumentCloud until it's been vetted in some format. If you want it to be completely public, you have to reach out to the tech team. We take a look at the code, make sure it's not doing anything malicious, and we make it public. Or we fork a read-only copy of it and then make that publicly available. If you want it available to other members of your organization, that's a lot less vetting. The add-on class doesn't yet know about MuckRock clients, so you do have to authenticate a MuckRock client in the script if you're trying to get documents from embargoed requests. You can do that, so you can interact with other APIs aside from just DocumentCloud and MuckRock APIs. I mentioned Azure in the past. I've interacted with Azure in one add-on. You can interact with Google, Amazon, so on and so forth. You can set those up as repository secrets. So I've linked here a video with a short snippet on how to do that in the add-ons workflow. And then for our use case, we'll limit this to only public requests for the time being. Additionally, if your add-on does something really complex, it's doing some natural language processing to summarize a document or something like that, and you need it to run longer than 5 minutes, you'll need to up the timeout in the workflow file. And I link to how to do that as well. So I've already done this in preparation for this. So I'm going to kind of just briefly go through what that kind of looks like. So again, I've mentioned the config.yaml. This is where I specify the title of my add-on, what the description is, if there's any instructions I want to provide to the user, and then any fields, front-end fields that I want made known. So in this case, I want to get a request ID from the user and the project name. Additionally, if your add-on works on documents, you'll see another section here that says documents, and you'll either specify whether you want the add-on to be able to run on selected documents, meaning a maximum of 25, or a query of documents, meaning it can run on a larger set of documents. Be careful if it's on query. If it's something super complex, it might not finish, and you might have a high failure rate or something like that. But yeah, you would see another section here for documents, essentially. This is what the add-on looks like, so we'll open it up. This is already publicly available, so if you have a DocumentCloud account, you can also run this add-on. You can see that I've already run it. I had an error the first time I set up the add-on, and the second time it ran. So I can specify the request ID of the MuckRock request that I want to pull documents from. And then I give the project name. This is a new project. So it's creating a new project with this specific project name. I'm going to create one that says CCDBR, basically, which is the Chicago Committee to Defend the Bill of Rights. It was for the FOIA request. So this add-on will run. And you'll see the config.yaml fields that we specified earlier appear as front-end fields here. And this is an integer because you can like go up and down here. If you specify something incorrect, it won't let you run the add-on. If we go back to the GitHub repo, you'll see under Actions tab, the current run is running here. I mentioned the workflow file briefly. So the run addon.yaml is the one I'm interested in. This will only currently run for 5 minutes because that's the default time. If I wanted it to run longer, I would have to specify like with timeout and then add a higher timeout. GitHub Actions is limited to, I think it's like 6 hours of runtime. Generally, you don't want to go that high. If it's something more complex, you might have to do break up that problem into smaller problems. But that is the largest timeout you can provide in the workflow file. This is also where you would specify token and key, which are two fields that you can use to store your secrets. So if you go into settings here and you go into secrets and variables, and then actions, I can set up repository secrets here, which hold maybe API keys, and I can access those using token and key into my add-on here. Then requirements.txt is lists kind of the libraries I need to use, the Python DocumentCloud library, Python MuckRock, so on and so forth. And then main.py. So this is the Python script I wrote earlier, the general functionality copied over into the add-on. It looks really similar. The main differences are basically I'm giving some alert to the user when different steps of the add-on are occurring. So first I'm fetching the files from the MuckRock request. And then later on, I'm telling the user that I'm uploading the documents to DocumentCloud. And then I'm telling the user, hey, the documents have successfully uploaded to DocumentCloud, or they failed to upload to DocumentCloud. And that's the step of the add-on that failed, and maybe to investigate the logs further to see why it failed. So that's the semi-finished project. I want to present 2 challenges. So the first challenge is the first person to successfully complete this challenge wins a free t-shirt from our swag store. Submissions must be sent to me at my email address here. So you notice that I still didn't make this add-on schedulable. There's no way for me to, similar to like the scraper add-on here, there's no way for me to actually run this on a schedule. So this is still going to only run once. It is not going to run multiple times. Actually, let's see if it created that. Yep. And there's our documents. So I still haven't made a way to collect the new documents. So that is possible. We can make the add-on schedulable. On a weekly basis, I want to be able to check for new files and upload any new files it has found. I also want to provide a project ID for a pre-existing project that exists on DocumentCloud. And the add-on should be smart enough to determine if it's an integer or a string. If it's a title of a project, it should create a new project. If it's an ID, it should look for that project ID and upload it there. Finally, I want to be able to choose the access level of the documents that are uploaded to the project. Public, private, or organization. I don't want to limit myself to only private documents. Right now, the add-on's only uploading private documents. And then hint, all of these improvements are already modeled in the source code for the scraper add-on. So each of these requirements already exist in another add-on, or even 2 add-ons like Klaxon also has similar source code. So all these improvements are already possible. So again, the first person to successfully complete this add-on challenge will win a free t-shirt from our swag store. So if you're interested in this challenge, take note. It's in the slides, so you can follow along there. So cool. Add-ons exist in the front end. Is there a way to actually call these to build my own workflow using the API? There are. So there are 50 pre-existing add-ons that does everything from optical character recognition to calling GPT on the documents to adding all the documents to a project to applying a regular expression search on a set of documents. There's a lot of different types of add-ons. You can also run these in the UI, but you can also call them using the API. So add-ons, similar to all DocumentCloud resources, can be called. All you need to do to call an add-on is to know its ID and the required parameters for the add-on. So I can search for a particular add-on. In this case, I want to search for the Azure OCR add-on. And in our case, that add-on's ID is 544. So if I wanted to be able to call that add-on, that would be the add-on ID that I would pass. So let's see. So you'll see here, 544. This is the name of the add-on, Azure Document Intelligence. That's the one I'm interested in running. So how do I find the required parameters to run an add-on? It'll tell us in the response if you call an add-on run and you fail to specify certain fields, it'll tell you there. But it's also available in the source code of the add-on. So if you check out the config.yaml file, it'll tell you what parameters are required. Again, in the API response, when searching for the add-on, it'll tell us that too. So if I go back to right there, it'll tell me property. So this one doesn't have any required fields, but it would tell us somewhere here. It does tell us that we need to specify which documents we want to run on in a list format like this. So selected. So let me go back to slideshow. So pop question. I want you to run this. So I gave you how to find the Azure add-on in this slide. How do you find what's the add-on ID for Klaxon and what parameters are required? Should be in the API response. Let's see if anybody has been open, wants to tell me that. Anybody? Nope, I ruined it. That's fine. So the ID for Klaxon is 436, and the required parameters are the actual site that you're looking to monitor and selector, which is the CSS selector for the portion of the site that you want to monitor changes for, basically. So I can call add-ons with the API. I do a post on the add-on runs endpoint. And then we must also include the required parameters that add-on expects and include any documents that add-on may expect as well if the add-on runs on documents. So here's how we call the Azure add-on on a sample document using curl. So again, post to the add-on runs endpoint. I pass in my authorization token because I'm doing a post call. And then I pass in this data. So the add-on ID is 544. I pass it a document ID. And then I pass it certain parameters. To-tag is not required for Azure add-on, but I specified it as true anyways. And then I also additionally pass dismissed is false. So I'm just basically telling it DocumentCloud, hey, this add-on run on the user account, show the add-on run. Show you what that looks like. It's easier to show this dialog, basically. If it's dismissed, it's like this. So it'll go away on a refresh. There you go. So dismiss equals false means that I want to show that run there. If you're running a lot of add-on calls, you want to dismiss it. So to monitor the progress of an add-on, first, you can only see your own add-on runs. When we create an add-on run, we receive something similar to this in the response, including a UUID, which uniquely identifies the add-on run. And then we can use that UUID to monitor the add-on's status. So if I this should include my authorization token. You won't be able to see this because this is my add-on run. But if you plug in a UUID for your own add-on run, you'll be able to see the status of that particular add-on run. And then in the responsive fields, one of them will be status. When that changes to success, we know the add-on has completed. So we can pull that endpoint occasionally, 10 seconds, every minute, something like that. And once it's changed to success, we can move on with our workflow. So let's say I'm doing a local workflow with the DocumentCloud API. I call the API to run an OCR add-on on my document. I poll to see when it's succeeded, and then I move on to the next task that I want to do, basically. So this is the ultimate power of add-ons and these reusable scripts, is that you can chain them together to build a bigger and more complex workflow. Let's say I use the MuckRock exporter to monitor my request for responsive documents weekly, and each time that it runs, it pulls documents into that project, and then after it's done with that, it applies OCR on those documents to make them more searchable. Then after that, I use regex extractor to look for pattern data in my responsive documents. And then maybe I want to even pass those documents to ChatGPT and see, like, can I get a summary of what these documents mean and get that emailed to me? And then finally, if I'm ready to publish, I might chain the change visibility add-on. I might publish these documents to make them public on my site, or embed them to my site. That's the ultimate power of these reusable scripts, is that you can chain them together, and they each have their own individual runners that you can pull for successfully and identify where it might fail or something like that. It's not one big library that kind of tries to do it all. So another contest challenge. This one's for kind of a bigger prize. So this one is not the first submission, but this one is the best submission. And it does have a deadline. So the best submission wins a MuckRock throwback hoodie from our swag store. So you have to submit them via email. The challenge is, I want you to develop an add-on that calls at least 3 add-ons, monitoring the status of the first add-on run before executing the second, and so forth. This add-on should have sufficient timeout so that it can reasonably complete all 3 add-on runs without failing. And then because GitHub Actions is limited to 360 minutes, I'll specify this requirement a little more. You can set it to only run on selected documents, so 25 at a time. It doesn't have to run on the whole DocumentCloud corpus. It runs on a small section. And then finally, one of the add-ons in the chain must be able to publish documents to Filecoin, the IPFS networks, for long-term preservation. One of these included add-ons may already include that as an option, like the scraper add-on includes that. There's also an RSS fetcher add-on that fetches documents from an RSS feed and puts them into DocumentCloud for you. That one also has the IPFS option. But anyways, one of them must include this, or it can be the push to IPFS add-on on its own. So that's the second challenge. I present that to the crowd for take home. Again, the deadline for this is Wednesday, May 28th, so a little under 2 weeks. I don't expect either of these to be a really heavy lift programmatically, especially the first one. The second one might be a little bit harder, but you do get a prize. Now I kind of want to talk. So we covered basic calls and looking at the documentation for the MuckRock API and the DocumentCloud API. And then I kind of talked about the Python wrappers for each and integrating them into a script that we run locally. And then I kind of talked briefly about add-ons and how we use those, and how you might even want to chain add-ons together in your own workflow or something like that. At the end of this presentation, I kind of just want to talk about 2 case studies of different organizations that have used our tooling extensively to build some pretty cool things. So the first is Disclose. Disclose is a nonprofit newsroom dedicated to independent accountability journalism and the freedom of information in France. So a little bit of background about their project is that in France, any like local construction permits or documentation for like how a project might affect the environment or something like that is published on local government portals. But by statute, by federal statute, they are ephemeral, meaning that they get taken down after 30 days. So theoretically, they're transparent in the fact that they're posted at all, and you don't have to file a public records request for them, but they're temporary and at risk of being lost because who is actually checking these portals for these permits on a regular basis and downloading them somewhere or archiving them? Certainly not many people. So they're at-risk documents. So with the help of MuckRock and the Filecoin Foundation, the Disclose team worked with us. They built 7 different web scrapers that kind of uniquely target these different local government sites, and a couple of their add-ons that are integrated into their kind of upload workflow to organize and OCR these documents for long-term preservation. At the end, they also built their own public portal on top of the DocumentCloud API to present these documents, and it's public, so you can click on that link here. It is in French, so do mind that, you know, if you're not a French speaker, it's a little harder to navigate. But I can search for documents, so I can search through their document set that includes something like 10,000 documents that include the word nuclear. So it returned to me 11 documents with this particular keyword, and it links to me the individual document, which I can open in their custom viewer here. Might block because I have no script on. Nope, it will. So it loads the DocumentCloud embed for us. It also gives us search highlights, so you can see where in the document a particular word has appeared. So this is all built on top of the DocumentCloud API. And you can also kind of segment by like which agency am I interested in looking at these environmental reports from, what department, so on and so forth, a date, time restriction. So they built this using add-ons and the DocumentCloud API. The second one is unredacted. They're a research unit. They're multidisciplinary, includes some academics, some professional researchers, some investigative journalists that focus on the field of national security in the United Kingdom and human rights. Specifically, most specifically on the US-UK war on terror. So with the help of MuckRock and the Filecoin Foundation, they built their own custom DocumentCloud management system using DocumentCloud, the API, and also their own front end and a custom WordPress plugin to create an archive like this. So this one will also take a little while. So this is their archive. I notice that this portion on my machine takes a little while to search, but I can do searches. So like 9/11, it's going to take a little while for that to load because it's loading the cache of all their, oh, there we go, it already worked. So this shows documents that specify that key search. And you can see, so they handled this character a little differently than I expected. That's fine. Let's just do like terror. That like pretty quickly locates what documents and where in that document each of these keywords appear. They have a full guide. You don't only have to search the full text of the documents, you can also search metadata. So they've organized their large 10,000 plus document set into kind of smaller collections. They also have used our OCR options to kind of make these documents more searchable. So they used our metadata management system called key value pairs to organize them into more searchable subsets, and they also used OCR to make the full text search more valuable. That's the end of my portion. So I just want to drop a note to kind of connect with us. If you're a developer and you have any questions, you can connect with us on our Slack, on our public tech channel. You can connect with us on the News Nerdery Slack. If you're a journalist and you're on that Slack, you can connect with us on Project Document Cloud. You can also sign up for our newsletter to follow new developments. You can follow us on our various social media. If you haven't already set up a MuckRock account before this, I'm actually not sure why you're on this call, but sign up for an account and then leave us feedback for today's event as well. And then finally, I want to open this up to questions. So I'm going to close presentation mode and head over to the Q&A document to see if there are any questions that have accumulated over this. Okay, so the first and only question has been answered. Anybody have any other questions? You can feel free to drop them in the chat or in the Q&A document if you don't have a link to it. Let's see if this link works. Feel free to drop me a question in there or in the chat. Otherwise, I'll give you all back 15 minutes of your afternoon. Okay, I'm gonna stop the recording.